بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Moving on to hadith number 389, we're still studying the chapter that deals with hunting from our series on Umdat Al Ahkam. Hadith number 389. Yes, sir.
Narrated Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever keeps a dog other than a hunting dog or a dog for herding livestock, 2 qirats from his good deeds will be deducted every day. Salim said, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu used to say, or a farming dog. Abu Hurairah had farms.
Now this hadith is indicating the permissibility of using dogs for hunting. And as we know that dogs are not permitted to be kept by a Muslim unless there is a legitimate reason, and that is either a hunting dog or a shepherd dog or a dog that protects and guards a farm. These are the reasons that are permitted for us to keep a dog, and whoever keeps a dog for any other reason, this is not legitimate, and 2 qirats would be deducted from his good deeds every single day. And in other narrations, the qirat is equivalent to the weight of Jabal Uhud, of Mount Uhud. So you can imagine the amount being deducted of those who follow the disbelievers in their customs and in their way of life. We know that the disbelievers treat the dogs as their own children, maybe more important than their own children. And this shows deficiency in their way of thinking. Taking care of their dogs, washing it every day, combing the hair, maybe taking it to a hairdresser, having beauty pageants for the dogs and kissing it, cuddling it. And this is unacceptable in Islam because the greatest impurity comes from the dogs. The Prophet tells us, ﷺ, if a dog licks in the utensils of any of you, he should pour out and throw out what's in it, and then wash it with soil once and wash it with water 7 times. 1 time is not enough. So this shows you that dogs are creatures that Allah created, but as Muslims they are a source of impurity and of najasa, and they should be kept away. Not only that, the Prophet told us ﷺ, that the angels do not enter a house where there is a dog. So the angels of mercy, the angels that seek Allah's forgiveness for us, will be prevented from entering a house if there is a dog. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect us all. The following hadith, hadith number 390, the hadith of Rafi' ibn Khadij, may Allah be pleased with him. Who will read that for us? Okay, akhi.
Narrated Rafi bin Khadij, we were in the company of the Prophet ﷺ at Dhul Hulayfa of Tihama. The people felt hungry and captured some camels and sheep as booty. The Prophet ﷺ was behind the people. They hurried and slaughtered the animal and put their meat in pots and started cooking it. When the Prophet ﷺ came, he ordered pots to be upset, and then he distributed the animals of the booty, regarding 10 sheep as equal to 1 camel. One of the camels fled, and the people ran after it till they were exhausted. At the time there were few horses. A man threw an arrow at the camel, and Allah stopped the camel with it. The Prophet ﷺ said, some of these animals are like wild animals. So if you lose control over one of these animals, treat it in this way, that is, shoot it with an arrow. I said, we will meet the enemy tomorrow and we don't have knives. Shall we use reeds? The Prophet ﷺ said, use whatever causes blood to flow and the name of Allah has been mentioned on it. You may eat it, except what was slaughtered with tooth or nail, and I will tell you why. It is because teeth and bones and fingernails are the knives used by the Abyssinians.
Okay. This hadith also goes in line with the chapter that deals with foods, in the sense that, first of all, the Prophet ﷺ, when with his companions and they were on an expedition, they did something without consulting the Prophet ﷺ. They took sheep and camels as booty of war. And sheep and camels are halal for us to eat. They slaughtered them, they started cooking them, or at the back of the army, because he was checking those who were weak, wounded, or are unable to catch up. So as the Prophet himself ﷺ used to take care of them and give them help. When he came to the front of the army when they were cooking, and he saw this, he got angry and he turned the pots upside down, throwing what was inside of them, because they slaughtered the booty of war before it was distributed. So this is not permissible in Islam. You cannot just take anything and consider it to be yours. It's part of looting. Islam channels such things by telling you not to take anything until the imam or the ruler or the leader of the army distributes it evenly. And this is what the Prophet did, alayhi salatu wasalam. He started to distribute the sheep and the camels. So he made 10 sheep equivalent to 1 camel and started giving it to the warriors. One camel was so wild that they could not catch it. And they ran after it, but no one was able to catch it because they did not have horses. Until one of the companions took an arrow and shot the camel, and it was there in its place. So the Prophet ﷺ gave the ruling, which is, when domestic animals that are usually domestic become wild, then you may kill them in such a fashion. Which means, if I have a herd of sheep and a guest comes to me and I would like to invite this guest to a meal of sheep meat. So I take my arrow and I shoot one of my sheep and then skin it and cook it. Is this halal? Yes? No? No. Why?
Because he has the mean to slaughter, but he didn't slaughter.
Okay, he has the mean of slaughtering it, which he did not do. You remember that we said that there are 2 types of animals, domestic and wild. Wild animals we can hunt. Domestic animals must be slaughtered, so I cannot go to a sheep or a cow and shoot it in the head and say, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and I can eat it. I have to slaughter it properly. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ told us. And he made an exception when a domestic animal becomes wild. In this case, we may kill it in any means possible. And like if a chicken goes wild, I can slaughter chicken, but this chicken is wild. I cannot catch it and it's attacking people. You shoot it and then, of course, saying Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, or Bismillah, and this would do the job, insha'Allah. Afterwards, Rafi' ibn Khadij asked the Prophet ﷺ a specific question. And he said, tomorrow, when fighting, there will be booty of war and we will get animals, but we do not have knives. So can we use reeds, a kind of plant or stick that can be sharpened and used as a knife? What did the Prophet say, alayhi salatu wasalam? He gave the green light to use anything that can slaughter, that has a sharp edge. Anything? Anything. Metal? No problem. Wood? No problem. Stones? Sharp stones? No problem. He made 2 exceptions. One, he made an exception with the tooth, and he made an exception with the nails. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the tooth, he justified that. What is the meaning of tooth? A tooth of a crocodile, for example, I find, and it's sharp. Can I use that? No. Why? The Prophet said, ﷺ, because it is bone, which means any kind of bones cannot be used for slaughtering. If I find a dead animal and I take part of its bone and it's very sharp, can I use it to slaughter? No. The Prophet ﷺ forbade that. Okay, what about the nail? The nails, the Prophet said ﷺ, that these nails are the weapons and the knives of the Abyssinians from Africa. They used to prolong their nails, strengthen them, sharpen them, and they used to scratch and attack people or animals with them like animals. So the Prophet said ﷺ, you cannot slaughter an animal with your nails. So even if they're hard and sharp and you can inflict wound to whatever you're slaughtering, this is not appropriate and it is forbidden for you to use as indicated in this hadith. So through what you have heard, inshallah, it is clear to you that anything with the exception of bones and nails can be used for slaughtering. Other than that, any material would be appropriate as long as the blood is shed and the name of Allah is mentioned. And this is a rule. Anything that is slaughtered, these two conditions should be fulfilled. Whatever sheds blood and the name of Allah is mentioned. If one of these two conditions were missing or is missed in the slaughtering process, this is haram of the conditions. We have a short break. Stay tuned and inshallah we'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now we open the floor for any of your questions if you have any. Yes, Akhi.
Sheikh, I have a question related to the point you made about keeping and maintaining dogs. One quick question, what is your opinion on dog kennels? Kennel is sort of like an orphanage for dogs wherein you have a setup and whenever a person finds a stray dog, you take it to the kennel. This is only a place for dogs and you have people appointed to take care of the dog. So rather than letting the dog suffer on the street, you have a place where you actually take care of the dog, feed the dog. There are no humans. It's a place exclusively for dogs. So what is your opinion on having a setup or an institute like this?
Well, if it is for the common good and if it is to give dogs that are helpful for people who need them to hunt or to guard their farms or to shepherd their herds, this is inshallah permissible. But if it's there just for form of luxury or selling it to whoever wants to adopt it, as we see, no, this is not recommended to do. And Allah knows best.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Is there any recommended thing for a cat that we should keep it as pet? As most of the families are keeping cat as considering as a prophetic tradition.
It is not a prophetic tradition per se that the Prophet ﷺ did not keep a cat, but there was a cat that used to come in and out from his house, and whenever it came, the Prophet used to ﷺ give it water. So it is permissible to keep a cat, to raise a cat, and to keep it in your house. There's no problem in that at all, and no sin in that. It's permissible. But no one would be encouraged to say that this is sunnah. So you come to my house and say, where is your cat, Sheikh? So I don't have any. So, oh, you're missing a sunnah. You're not a good Sheikh. No, this is not a sunnah. The Prophet did not recommend it, alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is why it is extremely important to know the difference between sunnah of aada and sunnah of ibadah. The sunnah is divided into two types. Sunnah that is in accordance to the traditions of the Arabs. So this is not rewardable. Such as the Prophet ﷺ used to ride the mule. So tomorrow you take the mule to go to your office. And what are you doing? He said, oh, this is sunnah. No, it's not. This is the tradition of the Arabs. The way the Prophet used to wear the cloaks. These are customs of the people of the Arabs at the time. So these are tradition. You have no reward in doing them. There is sunan ibadat or ibadah, which is the Prophet told you to do and he did it himself, and this is something rewarded. So for example, if someone puts the right hand on the left on the chest, this is ibadah. If I want to pray like this, it's permissible, your prayer is valid, but you have missed a sunnah that you would be rewarded for. Growing the beard is a ibadah, it's a must. It's not something that you may or you may not. Because the Prophet said, ﷺ, go against the Jews, go against the Christians and the fire worshippers. And he said 4 or 5 words that mean to be an order. Therefore, you have to follow them and you will be rewarded for doing that. So we have to differentiate this and that, and Allah knows best.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Can I shoot a game with a poisoned arrow?
If it penetrates the game, the animal or the bird, whether it's poison or not, the penetration itself is permissible. Now, putting poison into it, I would believe that it would make the animal poisonous as well. So you will not be able to eat it. Therefore, it is definitely harmful and not advisable. And having said that, people may shoot or kill animals for the fun of it. This is haram. This is not permissible. It is forbidden to take a living animal or bird as a target, just to do target shooting. People may do this to eat from the animal or from the bird. This is halal and there's nothing wrong in that, insha'Allah.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Alaikum salam.
Can we put a bird in a cage inside our house?
The question is, are we permitted to keep birds or other animals for entertainment in cages in our houses? And the answer is yes, providing you feed and water and take care of that animal or that bird. The Prophet ﷺ used to visit the house of Anas, and Anas tells us, as in Sahih al-Bukhari and elsewhere, that he had a brother called Aba Umair. And the Prophet would come and visit Abu Umair, a 4-year-old child approximately, who had a bird in a cage. And the bird is a nughair. A nughr is a bird. The Prophet used to joke with this child when the bird died and he was sad. And he would say, Aba Umair, ماذا فعل النغير? And he used to joke and kid with him and humor him. So scholars say that it is permissible to keep a bird in a cage, or to keep fish in an aquarium, or to keep any other pet that is halal to keep, providing you take care of it. Why? Because in Sahih al-Bukhari and elsewhere, the Prophet tells us that a woman was admitted to hellfire because she had a cat that was kept until it died out of starvation. Neither the woman fed the cat nor set the cat free to eat from the insects. So this kind of treatment for animals is very dangerous. If you keep a pet and you don't feed that pet, you will end up in the same situation. May Allah protect us.
Slol.
Alaikum salam.
People who sell dogs, will 2 kirat of good deeds deducted from their deeds?
No, selling dogs is prohibited. Keeping dogs that are not legitimate to keep will deduct 2 qirat from your good deeds. But selling dogs, it's by itself, it's prohibited, and it's not like keeping dogs. The price, the value that you get for selling the dogs is haram for you. You cannot take it or keep it.
As we mentioned that using dog for guarding the farm is halal. So can we relate this to keeping dogs to guard our homes?
Yes, the scholars say that if a person needs dogs to guard their homes, and they are actual good dogs that guard the homes, and there is a need to guard your home, this is permissible. But when it is not, there is no need. For example, if you live in a flat, what would the dog do to you? You're living in an apartment. Yes, it's understandable to have a dog if you live in a big house or a big mansion. And likewise, if there is no prior crimes committed in the neighborhood, there's no reason to fear. Why would you bring a dog? And thirdly, the dog has to be a real vicious and strong protection dog, not a chihuahua, for example, and saying, I'm keeping this to protect my house. Protect for your house? This is a mouse in the shape or form of a dog. No, this is not permissible.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
My question is that in a chicken shop where they sell chicken, they cut many chickens at a time. So for cutting every chicken, they have to say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. If they cut 10 chickens at a time, they have to do it fast. So do have to repeat every time they cut or slaughter a chicken. or only once?
Is it done manually or automatically by machines?
Manually.
If it's manually, every single chicken you have to say Bismillah Allah Akbar. Every single chicken you slaughter, you have to say Bismillah Allah Akbar. Sometimes there would be slaughterhouses that are automatic, in the sense that it's like an assembly line, and every 100 chicken at the time, they're brought and put in line, and with one button, the machine slaughters the 100 at the same time. This button you press, if you say Bismillah Allahu Akbar and you press it, this does the job. But if it's a machine that works one by one, so chicken come and the head is chopped, another one, a head is chopped, a third one, it's not sufficient to say in the very beginning of operating it, Bismillah Allah Akbar, then you open the newspaper and it's happening. No, it has to be with every one. So if it's automated and the press of a button, number of chicken or animals, and this press of the button is at once, and you say Bismillah Allah Akbar, this is okay. But to turn on the machine at 8 o'clock in the morning, Bismillah Allah Akbar, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you turn it off, killing 1,000 or 5,000 chickens, only the first one is halal. And the rest is considered to be haram.
In India, hunting is not allowed, but Islamically it's allowed, so can we still hunt in it?
As stated before, whenever something is halal and the laws of the country prohibits it, then you have to abide by the law, because they did not order you to do something haram, and they did not forbid you from doing something that is mandatory. So hunting by itself, what's the ruling on it? It's halal. So they didn't tell you do something haram. They didn't tell you eat pork. I will not eat pork. Even if the law says you have to eat pork, no, I will not eat pork. It's haram. And they did not make you stop doing something that is obligatory. So I'd like to go and pray in the masjid. The law say, no, you can't pray in the masjid. Why can't I pray in the masjid? There's nothing logical about it. They tell you, you must not be kind to your mother. This is mandatory upon me, so I do not listen to them. I do not obey them when it comes to disobeying Allah. If they tell me do not do something that's mandatory, I will not listen. If they tell me you have to do something that's prohibited, I will not listen. But if they tell me not to do something that is permissible, I have to obey them. If they say don't drive, or drive on the left instead of driving on the right, this is not mandatory and that's not forbidden. It is permissible to obey as long as you are living in this country. This is all the time we have. Until we meet next time, fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.